Can you still get a federal government job under the Trump administration? Yes, you can. But do you want to? Despite the negative headlines, the negative pressure on the federal workforce right now, and even the words coming out of Trump's own mouth, there are still over 6,000 open jobs to any U.S. citizen and close to 10,000 jobs for veterans and current federal employees. But there are still some considerations you have to think of before applying. We're going to look first at the federal agencies that are still hiring, and then the actual jobs that are in demand. Let's get into it. First, let's take a look at the federal agencies that are still hiring. These are agencies that are largely exempt from the current federal hiring freeze. And the top agencies are, number 5, the Department of Transportation. There are about 170 jobs here within this agency, and most of them are in the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration. Number 4 is the Health and Human Services. There are a couple hundred jobs open right now. These are mainly for medical professionals. So your nurses, your doctors, your medical assistants, people like that. Then you have number 3, which is the Department of Homeland Security. There are close to 700 jobs open in ICE, in CBP, the Customs and Border Patrol, in the TSA. This is one of the agencies that will probably be the most stable and consistent. If not, it will see some growth under the current administration, under Donald Trump. Number 2 is the Department of Veteran Affairs. There are over 2,000 jobs within the VA, mainly under VHA, Veterans Health Administration, and VBA, Veteran Benefit Administration. So those are the two main sub-agencies. There's also people in the Office of Information Technology. There's also people in headquarters. Now, the great thing about VA is they're widespread around the country. So there's probably a higher probability that you could potentially get a job there, even if you don't work near DC. It could be in your local area. And these are people from housekeeper, medical professional, police officers. They pretty much hire from all specialties. Number 1 is the Department of Defense, to include its sub-agencies. Here we have over 5,000 jobs open right now in the Pentagon, across the DoD, across many states, many countries. Wherever you have a military base, you probably have job positions for a lot of different specialties. It doesn't just have to be an intel guy. It doesn't have to be a cybersecurity. It could be for a lifeguard, for a recreational assistant, jobs like that. Now, what we're hearing in the news right now is that the Pentagon's laying off a whole bunch of people, and that's true. So the question is, how can they be laying off so many people and then be hiring so many people? And the answer simply is they're cutting areas and offices that are not critical. And what you're seeing on usajobs.gov right now, that has been deemed to be essential or critical, mission critical. Okay, so let's take a look at the actual jobs that are hiring. In total, there are over 300 different specialties, different jobs within the federal government. I'm only looking at the top 5 that are hiring right now. The first one is 0801, which is general engineering. And there are over 200 jobs open within this series. So for this one, you don't have to be a specialized engineer necessarily, because electrical engineering has its own job series. Mechanical engineering has its own job series. This is more of a catch-all, general engineering. Now, you need an ABET degree. You need, in some cases, they want you to have a PE, a professional engineering license. So you're going to have to look at the requirements for that. Next is the 2210 job series. This is IT management jobs. There's over 200 jobs here as well. So with IT in the federal government, that could mean a lot of things. It could mean InfoSec, information security. It could mean application developer. It could mean customer support. There's like 11 core tenets when it comes to IT. And depending on what your specialty is, that's how you're going to form your resume in order to be competitive. But yet you look through there, and some of them to this day, they're still offering incentives, a recruitment bonus in some situations. They're offering retention bonuses in other situations. So if you have the skills, it's worth looking in there. The next one is 0189, Recreation Aid and Assistant. Okay, so like we were talking about earlier, lifeguard, maybe the person that works at the bowling alley, maybe the person that works at the shopette on base. This is NAF, this is non-appropriated funds. So your money comes from a different pot. It doesn't come from taxpayer money. It could come from the business revenue. This kind of insulates you when there's a government shutdown where your money isn't impacted. Now, the bad part about NAF is they don't pay as high as, let's say, your average GS job. But it is transferable. You can go from one military base to another military base. This could be ideal for a military spouse, somebody who's looking for military base access. Okay, next is 0301, administration. There's over 400 jobs here, and this is essentially what makes up a lot of federal agencies. The individuals that are managing correspondence, the people that are working on privacy, on agreements, on interconnection documents, a lot of the admin functions that are needed to make the government run, to make that agency run. A lot of these folks were under attack when it comes to the Trump administration saying, what are you doing? You're not even working. You're sitting on your hands. You're just sitting there. And they're bringing everyone back to the cubicle farm. But there's still a need despite all this because there's legal regulations. There's things that are needed to be done for compliance sake within the federal government. So you need these people. Then we have 0610. These are nurses. There's over 500 jobs here. Between this and the medical officers, this is probably the largest job opportunity. So this is in the VA, this is also in the HHS. If you have the license to practice medicine in whatever capacity, there are opportunities here. In the VA, you can get paid a lot higher than the HHS because they use a different pay scale to pay you more. In addition to those jobs, other jobs that I think will continue to do well are the WG, the wage grade jobs. These are trade jobs. Look at plumber, look at pipe fitter, look at electrician, look at cooks, the trades. They're going to do well. They're doing well right now. And then also look at 1500, the 1550 series. That's computer science. Less people apply for those jobs because it requires you to have a computer science degree. Same thing with math. The 1500, they cover math. They cover operational research analysis. Those type of jobs. I think those will continue to do well. But the big consideration is, do you want to be a federal employee? Some people do, some people don't. For one reason that you might not want to do it is because the reputation is being drugged through the mud like never before. We've never seen anything like this, but the Trump administration is making sure that the federal workforce knows he doesn't really like them. The second thing, in Congress, to that effect, we have a fight over the benefits. Right now, the benefits are the same as they have been for the last decade. But could that change? Of course, it could potentially change. So there's that fight going on right now, and it doesn't seem as stable and secure as a job. One of the main draws to a government job has always been the stability and the security, along with the pension, but the stability and security looks more shaky now than it has pretty much ever. I think what we're going to see in the future is less people will be applying to these jobs. Now, if you're interested in it, it probably means less competition, but there's three groups of people I think will continue to apply for government jobs. Number one are veterans, because veterans have a preference in a lot of different ways. So when it comes to disabled military veterans, it could represent a good career move for them, especially if they're getting into some of those components in DHS or DOD. Could be a good thing. The second group I see are recent graduates. These are students coming out of university. And for them, there's a very low risk. Some of them are still living with their parents, or this is their first job. They're taking the internship opportunities because the government still offers that. They offer internships. There's a recent student hiring path that allows somebody to get into the government easier than somebody who doesn't have any preference whatsoever. And then you have people that are just okay with the risk, right? Maybe they are prior government employees. They did the private sector for 10 or 15 years, and now they're jumping back in to increase their total pension. Or it's just people that are okay and they're comfortable with taking a risk during this administration. If you are seriously interested about pursuing one of these jobs, you need to make sure that your resume is meeting the standard for a federal resume, meaning it has all the information in there, that you're really expanding upon your achievements. You do not want to apply with a one-page private sector resume. That's a common mistake. You want to make sure you're not doing that. Another thing to be aware is the current federal hiring freeze. Even though we have 6,000 jobs open, the hiring freeze that we're under right now, that's going to lift towards the end of April. That's the current schedule of the hiring freeze being lifted. We should see a lot more jobs, probably at least a 25% increase in total jobs available. So you can wait for that. You can start applying right now, depending on what's going on in your life. Another point of contention, or a lot of people are concerned about, is this language of 1 to 4. So in an executive order recently, the administration says you can hire one person for every 4 people that you let go. Now, what you have to consider with this is we had deferred resignations. We had a huge probationary employee purge, and then we're having RIFs, reduction in forces, large scale. Now, with that, the 1-to-4 ratio shouldn't even be a concern. But even with the ratio in effect, the agency head has the exemption authority. The head of the agency can say, hey, listen, I'm going to go ahead and approve these 100, 200, 300 hires because we actually really need them. So let's make that happen. And it doesn't apply to anything that falls under public safety, immigration, in a lot of cases, national security. Now, if you are interested in getting a federal government job, you should know the entire process from the beginning to the end and all the steps in between. If you're interested in that, I want you to check this video out next. If you need a federal resume example, check out the links down below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.